Good morning, friends. Happy Monday. It is May 18th today, which is crazy. We are like halfway through the month of May already. We have 2 weeks left in May and then technically 2 weeks in June, and then it is the end of the school year. So that's pretty crazy. So we're working on our last 4 Magic Treehouse books of the year. So these are going to be our last 4 missions. And in these missions, Jack and Annie will be learning how to use magic. So they're actually going to get, you know how Teddy, in the previous missions, he'd been giving them magical rhymes? Well, what is with my camera today? Like, stop it. It's just not feeling it today. Now my head's not in the frame. What in the world? It's because it's hitting my lightsaber. Okay, so anyway, you know how Teddy uses magical rhymes? Well, Jack and Annie are going to get some magical rhymes to use in these next couple of stories, and they're going to kind of learn how to use magic themselves. So, and all of these involve them going back in time. So in the previous ones, they went to, the previous 4 that we read, they had gone to magical places like that weren't in Earth. These are going to take them to, I gotta pause, this is driving me nuts. Okay, sorry, that's better. It just was irritating me the way it was before. Anyways, these are all going to take place sometime in the past in the real world. So let's get started with our vocabulary. So I'm going to actually show you the words this week so you can see them. They're not in ABC order. Sorry, I was kind of coming up with them as I flipped through the book. So first word is canal. A canal is basically channels of water that run in between either land or buildings or things like that. So the city that we're going to talk about this week is Venice, which is the word on the bottom. This word is Venice. And it's actually a city in Italy. You can actually go and look pictures up. It exists today. It's in Italy. You can go look up pictures on Google Maps. And basically, Venice is built in a series of canals. So you know how here in the United States, we have streets that run in between buildings and houses. Well, they have streets in Venice, but they also have canals, which is just basically water channels that run in between the buildings, and they use boats to get around a lot in Venice, or they did, and they are called gondolas. Second word on the list. A gondola is basically a low, kind of a flat boat. So it doesn't look like, you know, your typical boat shape. It's a little bit flatter on the bottom, and it's typically rowed by a gondolier, third word on the list. And a gondolier is somebody who basically stands in the gondola, and they have a long pole, and they push the pole through the water because the canals aren't particularly deep. And so they push the boat through the water using these oars or these paddles, and they're called a gondolier. And they usually will stand in the back of the boat, and then you kind of sit down in the front, and they push you through the canals or these channels of water that run through the city. The next word is grouchy. Grouchy is when you're kind of like mad and irritable and just like not in a great mood. Sometimes it can be for a reason, sometimes it can be for no reason at all, but you're just like, eerily, which is a funny word to say. Say eerily a couple of times. It's kind of fun. Eerily. Eerily means just kind of like creepy or spooky or weird. And then prong. A prong can be found on a fork. Can also be found like on a rake or a shovel, but basically prongs, if this is the fork, if my hand is a fork, my finger is a prong. It's the little metal point part that kind of comes down. So a rake, a fork, a trident, you know, like a trident like Aquaman has, or like trident, you know, Ariel's dad. No? Anybody? Okay. Anyways, that's what a prong is. So, we're going to go ahead and get started. This book is book number 33 in the old version. I don't know what it is in the new version. I think it would be book 5 of Merlin Missions, but I honestly don't know. But it's called Carnival at Candlelight. So if you have these books and you're trying to follow along, that's the one that it is. Okay. And this one, too, is only 9 chapters, so I'm probably going to do 1 chapter today just so I can get this video up to you because it's Monday morning and I'm behind. And then I'll do 2 chapters the other days and we'll kind of catch up. Okay. Oh, this one also starts with a poem, like a lot of them. I stood in Venice on the Bridge of Sighs, a palace and a prison on each hand. I saw from out the wave her structures rise, as from the stroke of the enchanter's wand. This is written by Lord Byron, The Childe Harold's Pilgrimage. Chapter 1, A Book of Magic. Dawn was breaking in the Frog Creek woods. Jack could see a light shining up ahead. He ran toward it. He ran so fast he couldn't hear his feet hitting the ground, and he couldn't feel the frosty winter air. As Jack got close to the light, he could see the magic treehouse up at the top of the tall oak. A girl and a boy were looking out the window. The girl had dark, wavy hair and sea-blue eyes. The boy had tousled red hair and a big grin on his face. As the two kids waved at him, Jack felt incredibly happy. "Jack, wake up!" Jack opened his eyes. His sister Annie was standing beside his bed. She was wearing her winter jacket, and it was just barely light outside. "I had a dream about the treehouse," she said. "Really?" Jack said sleepily. "I dreamed we were running through the woods at dawn," said Annie, "and that when we got to the treehouse, Teddy and Kathleen were there waiting for us." Jack sat up. "I just had the same dream," he said. "Meet you downstairs," said Annie. Annie left Jack's room. Jack jumped out of bed, put on his glasses, and threw on some clothes. He grabbed his winter jacket and his backpack. Then he slipped quietly down the stairs and out the front door. Annie was waiting on the porch. The February air was chilly. Frost sparkled in the grass as the sun rose over the Frog Creek woods. "You ready?" Annie asked. Jack nodded and zipped up his jacket. Without another word, he and Annie hurried up the street and into the woods. They ran through the long shadows of the morning between the bare winter trees, and then they stopped. The treehouse was back, just as Jack had seen. It was high up in the tallest oak tree, shining in the cold morning light. "Wow," breathed Jack. "I guess dreams can come true." "Yep," said Annie. "Hey, Teddy! Kathleen!" No one answered. "I guess only part of our dream was true," said Annie sadly. She grabbed the rope ladder and started up. Jack followed. Annie climbed into the treehouse. "Oh, wow," she said. "What is it?" said Jack. "They're here," said Annie in a whisper. Jack climbed in behind her. Their friends, Teddy and Kathleen, apprentices to Morgan Le Fay, were sitting under the treehouse window. Wrapped in heavy woolen cloaks, they were both fast asleep. "Hey, sleepyhead," said Annie, "wake up." Kathleen blinked and yawned. Teddy rubbed his eyes. When he saw Jack and Annie, he gave them a wide grin and leapt to his feet. "Hello," he said. "Hello," cried Annie. She threw her arms around Teddy. "We both dreamed you were here." "Ah, our magic worked," said Teddy. "Kathleen suggested we send dreams to let you know we were here, and it seems our magic sent us to Dreamland as well." "But now we're all awake," said Kathleen, "and I'm very glad to see you." She stood up, drawing her cloak about her. Her blue eyes sparkled like seawater in the dawn light. "I'm glad to see you too," said Jack shyly. "You taking us on another Merlin mission?" asked Annie. "Not exactly," said Teddy. "Merlin has a most important mission for you, but this time we will not be going along." "Oh no," said Annie. "What if we need your magic to help us?" Teddy and Kathleen looked at each other and smiled. Then Kathleen turned to Jack and Annie. "Morgan thinks you're ready to use the magic on your own," she said. "Really?" said Jack. "Mm-hmm," said Teddy, "but Merlin is very cautious about sharing magic power with mortals, even two as worthy as you. He is also wary of magic being used outside the realm of Camelot. Nevertheless, Morgan has convinced Merlin to let you prove yourselves, so you will be tested on 4 missions." "But we don't know any magic," said Jack. Remember when I told you on our last adventure," said Teddy. "If we all work together—" "Anything is possible," said Annie. "But you said you weren't coming with us." "That's true," said Kathleen, "and this is why we brought you this." She reached into the pocket of her cloak and pulled out a small, handmade book. She gave the book to Annie. The cover of the book was made of rough brown paper. Written in it in neat, simple handwriting was the title, 10 Magic Rhymes for Jack and Annie from Teddy and Kathleen. "You made this for us?" said Annie. "Yes," said Kathleen. "One line for each rhyme is in Teddy's language, and 1 line is in mine, the language of the Seal People." Annie opened the book to the table of contents. She and Jack skimmed the list of rhymes, and Jack read some of the entries aloud. "Fly through the air, make metal soft, turn into ducks." Annie giggled. "These are so cool," she said. "Let's turn into ducks." "Not now," said Kathleen. "You must use these rhymes sparingly. There are only 10 rhymes in the book, and they can only be used once. They're meant to last you all 4 journeys." "4?" said Jack. "Aye," said Teddy. "Merlin has agreed that if you can use our magic wisely on 4 missions, he will teach you the secrets that will allow you to make your own magic." "Oh boy," said Annie. Jack put the book of rhymes in his backpack. "So where's our first mission?" "The research book from Morgan will tell you," said Teddy. He took out a book and handed it to Jack. The cover showed a bright, colorful city surrounded by water. Jack read, "A visit to Venice, Italy." "I've heard of Venice," said Annie. By the way, I'm going to say Venice like a lot because they're going to Venice, and you don't have to jazz hands every time because then your hands will get tired. "I've heard of Venice," said Annie. "Last year Aunt Gail and Uncle Michael went there on vacation." "Aye, 'tis a city that has long welcomed travelers," said Teddy. "But you and Jack will travel back to Venice 260 years ago." "What'll we do?" said Jack. "Well, Merlin's prepared careful directions for you," said Teddy. He pulled a letter out of his pocket and gave it to Jack. "Read this when you get to Venice." "Okay," said Jack. He put Merlin's letter and Morgan's research book in his backpack. "Wait a minute," said Annie. "If we're taking the treehouse to get to Venice, how are you guys getting back to Camelot?" Teddy and Kathleen smiled and held up their hand. They each wore a ring made of pale blue glass. "These magic rings belong to Morgan," said Kathleen. "They'll take us home." "Remember," Teddy said to Jack and Annie, "follow Merlin's directions carefully. If you prove yourself to be wise and brave helpers, he'll call for you again soon." Kathleen nodded. "Goodbye now," she said. "Good luck." They raised their glass rings to their lips and whispered words too softly to be heard, then blew on the rings. Before Jack and Annie's eyes, the two young sorcerers began to fade in the morning air. In an instant, they disappeared completely. "They're gone," breathed Jack. "Guess it's time for us to go," said Annie. Jack took a deep breath and pointed at the cover of the Venice book. "I wish we could go there," he said. The wind started to blow. The treehouse started to spin. It spun faster and faster. Then everything was still. Absolutely still. Chapter 2. So, I don't really have any questions about the story this week, but I guess you could think to yourself, what would be the coolest magic rhyme or thing that you could do with a magic rhyme? Like, what if you could come up with a magic rhyme, what would you want the magic to be that came out of the rhyme? All right, I'll see you tomorrow, guys.